Hey everybody, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour, and I feel like learning more about the Coptic Church. So we're going to go back to Chicago, Illinois, to St. Paul's Coptic Orthodox Church, and hang out with Father James McHale as we sit down and talk through their history and theology and all of that kind of business. All right, let's get after it.
Who is Jesus, just very succinctly, in the Coptic tradition?
Jesus is God, fully man, second person of the Holy Trinity, begotten of the Father, as we say. So begotten of the Father, but again, same essence, meaning he is fully divine, has the same nature, which is the divine nature as God the Father, as the Holy Spirit, all three being equal. So just that relationship is our fundamental to everything.
So Arius was the guy. He's from Alexandria, right?
Yes, he is.
And so the problem starts there
Yes.
with someone who finally figures out how to articulate this in a way that it'll catch on, suggesting that Jesus is more than begotten. He's a created being, but then it's other Alexandrians who come along and clarify the position you just articulated,
Yes.
that is, begotten and created being aren't the same thing. How are those two things different?
It's hard to describe. Begotten is the language of the church. Created means that God the Father, if we call it, that basically he was, and then Jesus came, and we don't believe that. We believe there's no time where God the Father, where the Holy Trinity was not there. They were always, again, before, as we say, actually in our hymns, in our hymnology, in our refrain that we say in the Advent fast.
Okay.
So right before Christmas, we say, Christ, the begotten of the Father, before all ages. The begotten of the Father. So our hymnology always teaches us all this about our thing. The begotten of the Father, before all ages. Meaning he was always around. He didn't just come, on earth and just came, in the year zero and then he came. We believe that he made appearances in the Old Testament, and that's typically the Bible helps us a lot in that it will capitalize some of those for us, so it makes it easier. The angel of the Lord, we believe, is in some of those cases was the pre-incarnate form of Christ.
Okay.
So he was always around.
Yeah, I know some Protestants who would see it that way, others who would disagree. There's this question, because what you just said, that sounds like the Western Catholic Church, that sounds like everybody in Protestantism other than like oneness Pentecostals who would put Jesus in a different category. That just sounds like orthodoxy. Everybody, high five. We all think that, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like there's some kind of distinction. There's some little narrow distinction in terms of that definition of the nature of Christ, the dual nature of Christ, that put division between the Western Catholic Church and the Coptic Church. And that comes down to the question of monophysitism. How do I pronounce it? Monophysitism versus miaphysitism. And can you walk me through that distinction again?
This is a very, very loaded question, and to properly...
I didn't mean to ask in a loaded way.
No, that's okay.
I'm stumbling into territory.
No, I'll try to give as much as I can.
Okay.
But I would just, if somebody's really, really interested, I would definitely dig a little bit more, because it has a lot of history. It wasn't a one moment type thing, one council. Okay, what do you say? What do you say? What? You're talking about decades of things that were happening, and some of it was political as well.
And my friend, this is, to anybody outside of this conversation who hasn't been around it or gone to school for it, feels like completely splitting hairs. It's only when people took the time to really game out the implications, they start to realize, this sort of matters. So, okay.
So I'll say the problem and what was happening, and there was just a lot of rumblings in terms of what's happening in Alexandria, what's happening in Egypt. Why do we keep hearing one nature? We believe that Jesus has
one
two
nature
nature.
is monophysitism.
One nature is mono,
Okay.
And they keep hearing one nature. What's going on? And to the point they, like everything else, like we would do, no one person makes a decision. So we always gather in a group, and that was what we call the fourth Ecumenical Council,
Okay.
Which happened in 451.
And which one was this? This is in...
This This is in Chalcedon.
This is the Chalcedon. Okay,
Yeah,
got
that's
it.
the Chalcedon. So at the end of the day, from my simple understanding, and again, I would, so that I don't cheat anybody from like a really good explanation, I would look it up in terms of really all the details preceding to that council, because there was a lot of working up. It was a little bit, bottom line, a little bit politics and a little bit of misunderstanding.
Okay.
So when we were saying one nature, we as in Coptic and a part of the Oriental Church, as opposed to the Eastern Orthodox Church, meaning the Greeks, the Russians, the Romanians, they were saying that we only believe in one nature, where we are saying, yeah, one nature out of two. And they were saying, no, we believe that God is fully God and fully man. And we're saying, yeah, that's the nature, fully God, fully man.
So you're saying, we're saying the same thing, guys, and they're saying, no, we're saying something different.
Right.
Okay.
In my simple mind, I like to simplify things. I look at it in a very, very simple, maybe too simple way. You know, like somebody will say, look, you know, there's chocolate and peanut butter. I go, yeah, it's Reese. And I go, no, I'm saying chocolate and peanut butter. Say it right here. It's Reese. It's right here. Chocolate and peanut, it's right there. It's both of them. No. It's two. Yeah, the two are one. Well, what's the difference? So I think part of it is, again, the language. I don't know if it's a language, but definitely a misinterpretation. We were definitely not saying he has one nature, whether it's human or divine. We are saying this new one nature is intermingled. It's the mix of full humanity and full human, but never, again, his humanity never departed from his divinity, as we say, as we proclaim and as we confess. Luckily, you know, in the 1960s and then definitely in the 1990s, so just not that long ago, the churches did get together and realize that we have the same faith. We're saying the same thing, that he is fully God. So
wait, which churches got together? You guys?
Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox.
Okay, so you still haven't had a sit down with the Western Catholics yet.
I think the Western Catholics, my understanding, I think they're okay with that,
okay.
The two nature, because they were still part of that church at that time. We were the first church to separate, but again, it's kind of like two parallel paths.
Yeah, how about that?
Even before the Catholic Church.
So that parting of ways or beginning of parting of ways happens at Chalcedon.
Yes.
And at that point, you start to see an actually distinctive Oriental Orthodox Church versus Eastern Orthodox Church. And then in 1054, with the enormous schism between the West and East.
Yes.
So that papal bull of excommunication in 1054 wasn't really directed at you.
No, we were out of it already.
Okay, you were like, we're already done.
We're done.
we'll just be here in Egypt. We'll be here if you need anything. Okay, all right, that makes a ton more sense. So what's interesting is that of all the Christological debates and categories, I mean, you have the ones that are weird outliers like Nestorianism, like, no, it's two complete persons. You got one that's human and one that's divine that everybody roundly denounces.
Correct.
You've got like modalism, this is one entity manifesting in different ways. Everybody is crystal clear on that.
Yeah.
But what you're describing is almost just a breakdown in communication. We're saying the same thing, we're saying it like this, and others saying a different thing, but what's interesting to me is by what year was Chalcedon? 451, language had started to kind of break out into the Latin West and the Greek East. I just wonder how much the fact that it had been a few generations since everybody was really communicating the same way, I wonder how much it just lost in translation between those two very different language structures.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speculating. I don't expect you to know that.
Again, the language was coming from St. Cyril, which everybody was okay with. It was the one incarnate logos. Logos is a Greek word, right? I mean, it's the Word of God. The incarnate, like he took flesh. That's the human part. The logos is the divine part. So it's the one incarnate. He took our flesh. Logos, God. One incarnate Word of God. And again, it's a loaded sentence, and whether they didn't understand it, didn't like it, at the end of the day, I think I was saying that, God works in our weakness, and he made both churches, both paths prosper to the point that Though really we excommunicated each other, everything got reinstated in roughly in 1990, where they saw, oh, we are confessing the same faith and the same Christology. So
it's still a bummer about those 1,500 years.
That's a bummer. That's a bummer.
I'm glad we got that patched up. But
Maybe God was, who knows? But it happens.
I'll be thankful for what we have instead of bummed about what we didn't.
Right.
That's cool. So then there's another obvious challenge. I bet a lot of people who are sitting watching this video right now are like, are we going to talk about Islam? Because how are there Christians in Egypt?
Yeah.
I mean, from the United States perspective, people have, most people probably haven't traveled in the Middle East or Egypt or the Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah.
And we kind of imagine, there's kind of a lumping effect when you're far away from something. You imagine all environments and things to be the same. So Islam shows up in the 7th century.
Yes.
That was a pretty violent showing up. I'm not trying to be mean or critical. It's just that's historical reality. Mm-hmm. What happened to you guys when Islam showed up?
Yeah, everything definitely changed a lot of things, including the language. So going from speaking in Coptic forced everybody to speak in Arabic. So even just the simple things,
And Coptic is Greek-ish?
Greekish, yeah. If you want to call it, it's very, very similar. And definitely there's a lot of Greek into Coptic, even Greek into our liturgy. And there's a lot of Greek that we still use in our liturgy. So it's it's similar. So number one, Arabic. And that's the least. But the next thing is the faith. I mean, Islam is not as tolerant. So either you're Muslim or you die. So the church, first of all, and frankly, and we're not the only church, right? Sometimes we feel like we're the only church. You see what's happening in China right now. I mean, persecution, Jesus promised. It's not the promise like we always like to hear.
Muslims are taking a beating in China right now too, for that matter.
So
we've got something in common there.
The church will be, Christians will be persecuted.
Yeah.
You'll be hated for my names. If they hated me, they'll hate you. So that's whether it's your Russian, whether it's your Greek, the Ottoman Empire. Ours was Islam. So
Why do you think that is?
Sorry?
Just big picture. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I want to get back to the question, but I'd be interested in your thought on the. I don't know. Why does the world hate Christians? Why does that keep happening?
I mean, the world. So when you said big picture, well, let's look at the very big picture. The very big picture is God and Satan, right? And Satan hates God, and Satan hates the children of God, and he will do just as like I promised, or just as God wants everybody to be saved and come to the knowledge of truth. Satan wants everybody to die and to be lost. So he will do everything in his power to stop this. So in the first few centuries, persecution. The next few centuries, heresies. Let's split the church. If I can't, the more he was killing, the more people were coming to faith. It wasn't working. So he tried another way. And we're going big picture, because really the war is a spiritual war between God and Satan.
It's not flesh and blood.
Yeah, that's the war. So the war is on Satan to break Christians and make them do whatever, persecute them, put heresies, make them split, make any divide in the church, in the families. Let's divide husband and wife. Let's divide parents and children. Yeah. Any division, right? Any division will go towards towards the kingdom of Satan. So why do people hate? It's just there's a war. And there's a war, and he will do everything in his power to make Christians fall.
Does that make you feel more empathetic toward the people who persecute Christians, knowing that there's a spiritual force behind it?
Yes, honestly, yeah. I mean, I pray. Do you get angry? You get angry, but you pray. You turn to prayer and say, God, they're brainwashed, or they don't know the full truth, and may you show them the truth. Although, of course, we want them to stop persecution, but it does make you more empathetic in that, God, I want these people to be saved. They don't know. Why are they persecuting these Chinese, these Russians, these Egyptians, these Americans, these whatever? Why are they persecuted? God, open up their eyes. Let them know who you are. Let them know you're a God of love. Let them know that you're a God of grace. Let them know you're a God of forgiveness. And they don't know that about you. Yeah, it does make you more empathetic.
So Islam shows up, the language changes. You guys get a tax imposed on you, if I recall correctly. Does Islam ever just have a moment where they're like, we're just not going to have Christians here anymore, and they just shut down the church? Or are you always allowed, at least at some level, to continue to exist in Egypt?
No, I mean, this is just a very recent thing. There was no church building.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just recent, under just new political leadership, where we're allowed to come in and build churches again.
Like since Nasser, or
No.
like really recent?
Yeah, we're talking
Wow.
Sisi.
But not everyone's taking kindly to that.
It's much better, but yeah, definitely not as bad as it was maybe 7-8 years ago, which brought a massive influx of people into the U.S., Canada, Australia, Europe. Massive. Maybe the church, I won't say doubled, but it's grown incredibly over the last 10-15 years.
Did I read rightly that the United States is the second largest Coptic population in the world at this point?
I would believe it.
Okay.
I would believe it. I mean, it's got, in terms of numbers, it's just got the numbers between the whole all the states.
I understand nothing about the socio-political situation in Egypt. I mean, I see some stuff on the news every now and then, but I got nothing.
Yeah.
Has there been any gesture of hope or any subgroup within Islam that's like, hey, like, we're just going to treat these people well. Let's do this better. Is there any impetus toward more than just tolerance, but even like some kind of collegiality, or is that just not a thing?
No, I think, again, so I'm a little bit removed as well, and so maybe not to cheat definitely people would have a much better answer than I do. My understanding is definitely, since this political regime, it's before, like when I'm saying before like whatever, 2011, you can just blow up a church and Christian and maybe not even have a trial, maybe not even, where at least now, like, it's not acceptable. I don't want to say the wrong things, but I'm not sure if I'm saying before it was acceptable, but a lot of things were just, people were just not looking. You know,
Sure.
It's like, just where people aren't looking now.
That happens in societies.
So definitely now it's better. It's not acceptable. You will be put into trial. You will be put into jail. It's just not an acceptable thing, and it's definitely much better under this regime in terms of that. Do we have total social fairness? Not yet. Not yet. There's definitely still discrimination in terms of positions, government position, high positions. Towards Muslim people. So there's whether it's a physical persecution or a social persecution, it's still continuing. Definitely things are better and much better than it was 10 years ago.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'll take it.
Yeah,
We'll take
that's
it.
the exact phrase I was formulating. We'll take it. Jumping back to a big picture theology question, and I need to let you off the hook soon here. In terms of the cross, what happened there? What does the atonement look like in Coptic theology?
Again, like everything, we look at it as the whole picture. Definitely, we look at the incarnation, the cross, the resurrection, the ascension. So we look at it as one package. So what happened on the cross? What happened before the cross, and why did Jesus come? And understanding the whole point of his coming helps to understand the cross. So if we look at his incarnation as a healing process, we had a problem. We had several problems. We had a death problem.
Right.
So we die. That's not a good thing. We had a sin problem. We had the problem of Satan. Satan basically being, just rampant, not being contained. And so the incarnation was solving these problems, these three problems, which I, just in my simple mind, say it's the three S's: Satan, sin, and second death. Second death, because we all die once, but not everybody dies a second time. There's a physical death, but maybe not a spiritual death. So the second death is what we're more concerned about. So those three S's are the problem. And we as humanity ruined the image that God created. God created like a Mona Lisa, right? It was absolutely beautiful, and we broke it. How do we break it? By sinning. So what do? Does he throw it away? No, he doesn't throw it away. He restores it, and he basically heals it. So we look at his coming as a healing, as a rescue.
The incarnation.
The incarnation, the cross, the resurrection.
It's an infiltration operation.
It's hard to just talk about one because they're all like it's what his action of coming is incredible. Everything is all love. Is the cross love? Yes. Is his incarnation love? Absolutely. I mean, he was in heaven. Well, why get stuck with this body? So him coming was a healing mission, basically restoring our nature, making us truly righteous. So the cross was that way. The cross is what defeated death. Death had to be defeated. And how does he defeat death? By him dying. Death, that's why we sing, and we sing it all through Easter, trampling death by death, which is again St. Paul's word. He trampled death by his own death. So death has no power on us. That's the biggest thing on the cross. He trampled down death. Like, we don't have to be afraid anymore, because just as he died, he rose. So right away from the cross, we always link the cross to the resurrection.
Yeah.
So he trampled death by death, therefore we rise. We have hope in this world. We have hope for our eternal salvation through his incarnation, his cross, his resurrection, his ascension into the heaven, where he's telling us it's actually a bodily resurrection. You will rise. I'm telling you, your body, this weak thing, I'm taking it up with me. Meaning, you're going to take it up with you at the end of the days. So what he did is he restored mankind. The problem of death, the problem of second death, the problem of sin, the problem of Satan, as he said, he bound him. He went into Hades, and he bound Satan for 1,000 years, which we are still living. It's not a literal 1,000 years. So Satan doesn't have as much power as he did, believe it or not, even all of this. So he's bound. He has no power on us. He has no power on us if we are in Christ. Second death, not a problem anymore. Sin, I've told you, I've got you, when you're baptized, you're chrismated, I'll give you a helper. You've got confession. Don't worry, just confess your sins. You've got communion. Let me be in you to restore you. I will make you a new person so that sin has no problem. All these were solved in Christ's coming, dying, resurrection, and ascending.
I'm having two levels of response. One, that's beautiful and it makes sense to me. The other is that being a part of the Western tradition, that I'm going to tend more toward the justification side of the story. The substitutionary nature of the atonement is something that's more heavily emphasized in the West. So in talking with my other Orthodox friends, I get the impression that is not the central value of how you view what happened at the cross. And I feel like I understand that better than I ever have based on what you just said.
Okay, good.
So then, whereas for my tradition, that cross is maybe the singular moment of the resolution of the problem of sin. You view that as part of a more extended, multi-incident process of resolving that's carried forward in the life of the church.
Yeah.
This is all kind of happening a little bit out of time then, whereas for us, we maybe think more in terms of pointing to an exact moment.
Correct.
Sin and death defeated here, life wins out here, God with us, God becomes man back here. Am I wrapping my brain around what you're saying all right?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to
Because I really want to understand.
Sure.
And because I think it's a key point. And again, I think it's one of those things where you go to 3 or 4 key assumptions. I don't need to list them all out right now. And your Calvinism, your Arminianism, your Lutheranism, those takes on salvation and the cross and defeating death, they're very, very coherent. I mean, it really works. You answer a few of those key assumption questions differently. You come to a different conclusion about the weight of the consensus of the Church Fathers. And then I think a slightly different read on how all of that plays out, different but compatible, is going to make perfect sense and be utterly cohesive.
Yeah. Again, so we see salvation as not just salvation, I'm saved, I get to go to heaven. We see salvation as a daily thing too, as a healing, as he's saving me every day. Like he's giving me an opportunity to like anger gone, like truly gone, like making me more like him, to be conformed to the image of Christ, as St. Paul says, right? Yeah. Every day I'm like more like Christ and building more like. So our salvation is something that we're still living. It's not just gates of heaven are open, which is, of course we believe that. We believe in eternal life. We believe in heaven. That's what we look for. But we also have it as a picture of healing this brokenness, this masterpiece that he built is slowly becoming that masterpiece. And that's salvation. He's saving me, from my own like sins and my weaknesses and the things that I'm struggling with, to become more like him, to be the image of him.
So somebody walks into the church where I go, or where I was a pastor for a long time. They're like, hey, this checks out. I would like to become a Christian now. Like in my brain, I've got a pretty clear, okay, well, we need to do this, this, and this. Let's talk this through. What do you do when somebody walks in? They're like, been coming for a while? You, sir, make a lot of sense. I'm tracking. I'm in. I want to be a Christian. What do I do? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is what you said, is come for a while. So look, there's nothing totally set in stone, but I'll say the norm, and then everything could be off with its timing, depending on what background you're coming in. Like, are you coming in an atheist? Are you coming in a Roman Catholic? Are you coming in a Protestant? So, like, what are you coming in? So that's why there's not one answer fits all.
Okay.
But the general is definitely everything. Just come and observe. Come participate, and definitely in the liturgy and any service, like, whatever we have Bible studies, we have prayer meetings, we have other adult meetings, like learn, read. So we'll give them some readings. And then we actually have a formal, like 8-week class where we mainly go through the creed. So if you're going to come in, let's make sure that our fundamental belief on God the Father, the Trinity, the Church, the second coming, everything that's in the creed. What are we practicing? How do we, what are we going to do once we're a Christian? Well, we pray. Well, we read the Bible. Well, we give. Well, we fast. Well, we practice the sacraments. So it's what's our walk? What's our belief? And then what's our walk? Or, nicely said, orthodoxy, orthopraxy. What are we practicing? So we go through an 8-week session, but part of it, again, is just living and understanding the mind of the church. Are we okay with the liturgy? Are we okay with understanding? Like, am I bought in? Is this something, what I'm going to do? So that process, 6 to 12 months, 6 to 24 months for some.
What happens if they die in there? Like, what happens if they come for 6 months and they're like kind of on this track to like, okay, I'm in, and then just something horrible happens and they die?
Like I said, salvation, judgment is none of my business. Like, all I know is we worship a God of love, grace, and mercy. What's he going to do? It's his call.
That's a very liberating position.
It
was transformative for me when I came to that conclusion as well.
Who am I? Who am I to say what happens to any soul? We do not judge any soul. There's one judge. There's one judge.
I have 100 more questions I could ask you. I'm looking out the windows and seeing it's dark. You've been so generous with your time and so unthreatened by me just trying to ask in a way that's honest. Thanks for giving me the benefit of the doubt on all my questions and opening up and being hospitable like this. It's meant so much.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Even if you're not Egyptian, did that guy kind of make you want to be Coptic? A really good representative of an expression of faith will have that effect on you. And I think it's a good thing. That guy is a great ambassador for what they're about. He was oriented toward peace and grace. We're talking about these gigantic historical forces that at many times in his context have been violent. I mean, the Copts are the ones who've been on the receiving end of those horrible, violent videos that were going around the internet a few years back with radical Islamic extremists doing awful things to Christians. Those are his brothers and sisters, I assume only figuratively, but who knows? I mean, that's crazy stuff. I think about how upset I get over much more modest slights than that. And then I compare it to what I just saw from him. And did you hear it? He credited the division within the church and even the oppression and violence they've sustained to Satan, the spiritual forces of darkness, the notion that the Apostle Paul gives us that we're not battling against flesh and blood, but that the ugly stuff, the really broken stuff, is a representation of the places where the spiritual yuck that, as weird as it sounds, must be a reality if there's a God and there's a redemptive plan, when that stuff bubbles to the surface. So I asked him, does that make you empathetic to the people who've been tough on you guys? And he was like, yeah. And I just think, I'm not empathetic to the person who cuts in line on me at the McDonald's drive-thru. And here this guy is talking about being on the receiving end as a people of all kinds of violence and rejection. And still there's that spirit of humility and empathy and grace. Look, whatever they're cooking over there in terms of theology and personal discipleship and ethics, I'm impressed. I don't want to give the impression I'm not impressed with what other people are doing who I've visited, but Father James very much made, to use the word again, an impression on me. And further, I thought it was interesting when we did get into a potentially theologically sticky topic about the nature of what happened with Jesus and the cross and salvation and all of that business. Maybe more than ever, the distinction between the historical Roman mind and its points of emphasis and the historical Greek mind. Obviously, I understand the Coptic Church is Egyptian, but there's a reason that the Coptic language is a mishmash of Greek and North African language and script as well. I mean, the Hellenizing force of Alexander the Great and his generals' presence in Egypt, not just Egypt, but the whole Eastern Mediterranean world in the classical world, it can't be overstated. It was huge. So Egypt was very Greek during the time of Christ in its mentality and its mindset, not just linguistically. Well, the Roman mind is very legally oriented. If you're a part of the West, you have a Roman legal mind to some extent. Setting aside the most recent deconstructionist attempts, the West has been very legally Roman. And the Eastern Mediterranean world, not the Far East, but the classical East, has been very Greek in its mind. And again, if you're from the West, you're part of this Greek legacy of the Greek rationalistic mind that can deal in mystery and is interested in the philosophical tension between the unseen and the seen, the spiritual and visible, ideological and the physical. And so it is not surprising to me at all that the Western Church would gravitate more, because of what's hardwired into our brain from the beginning, toward the more legal-oriented expression of what happened on the cross. I think that's all over the Bible. And this would be a place where, if these were debates, I'd be like, well, maybe I have this verse, that verse, maybe we see this a little bit differently. But certainly the Roman Western Mediterranean mind is going to have an easier time and more receptor sites to connect to the stuff in the Bible that uses legal terminology to talk about justification and what Jesus did at the cross. The Eastern, more Greek philosophical mind is going to have more receptor sites that are prepared to latch on to the things in the Bible that talk about the mystery of the incarnation and Jesus' holistic work in redeeming humanity. And the reality is that throughout time, most of the conversation here has been a debate, who's right and who wins. Truth is, I think they're both in the Bible. I think they both pass the smell test of reason. I think they both pass the smell test of historical church tradition, really within Protestantism, Catholicism, and all expressions of Orthodoxy. It's all there. But every time I interact with somebody from a more Orthodox tradition, capital O Orthodox tradition, they are leaning more into that holistic mystery of the presence and work and person and deity and humanity of Christ, and how all of that stuff mishmashed together somehow has this transformative, redemptive effect on history as well as the individual. Whereas, again, in the West, it tends to be a little bit more of the individual has a sense of guilt, and then that individual has that guilt resolved by Jesus' substitutionary atonement on the cross. I personally would be a little bit suspicious of anybody who out and out rejected either of those things. I think they're far more compatible than they're often given credit for, but ultimately that's for you to think about and do with what you will. There was one thing that happened, going all the way back to that thought about just, I like what the Coptic expression of faith is produced in my friend James. There was a guy who came in, and it was a little bit awkward. I mean, we clearly had cameras set up and we were doing stuff. He just came into the church well after hours and, jumped right in, which is fine. I'm not offended by that in any way, but he jumped right into the middle of the interview, and the conversation was like, hey, I want to talk to you about, some of the neighborhood guys using your facility. And it was a little bit socially uncomfortable, but wow, Father James, heart of a pastor, just he knew I'd be cool with it, set me aside, walked over. I was able to hear the conversation. He asked great questions. He showed compassion and interest in this guy and his young buddies who just wanted to use the facility for some fun stuff. And it was amazing to watch him use that opportunity, not let it slide by, to reach out into this person's life. And then, off camera especially, he just kept telling me, like, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach our community. Like, that's the kind of language that evangelicals use. We're going out into the community. We're going to tell people about God and Jesus and the gospel and the Bible and do redemptive things. And I guess maybe sometimes you start to imagine that only your tradition is the one that really knows what to do. And I don't think that's a strictly evangelical phenomenon either. I talk with a lot of people from a lot of different expressions, and everybody's pretty high on what they're doing, and maybe even kind of wonders if everybody else is doing their part or enough. Let me assure you, at least that Coptic church with that pastor is doing more than their part. I walked out of there feeling like, man, I could use to be more patient, more intentional. I could use to exude grace to a greater degree. He really made an impression on me just with how he was, even when nobody was really watching in a way that would end up on the internet at any rate. So high five, Copts. This was awesome. I like you. I like what you did. I have more questions. Of course, it's hard in just this amount of time to learn everything about where you're coming from and what you're doing. But this was encouraging and awesome, and I enjoyed it. Thanks for the hospitality. Thank you to all of you in the comment section for just being overwhelmingly awesome. This shouldn't work. You shouldn't be able to do this as well as you do it, but you come in here, you watch the whole video, you say things that make sense, you're charitable to people you disagree with. I mean, for the amount of people who are jumping in and commenting, to only have one or two occasional difficult things happen, that's amazing. It's unheard of for YouTube. And that's a testament to who you are, whether you're a person of faith or not faith. You handle your business really well around here, and I very much respect you for it. Last thing, it's kind of weird because it's a little bit of a shameless self-promotion, but I don't know. It seems like we like talking together. I have a podcast that I do with this other mic right here. They're different mics. They do different things, you see. And that it's a daily podcast. It's called the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast because of lack of creativity. And in that one, sorry about that, we just go right through the book of Matthew, a tiny little bit every day. The goal is not to advance my version of how to read the Bible. The goal is to try to strip a lot of that stuff away and pick through the thing one little bit at a time, considering it from the perspective of the original audience, from different audiences throughout history, trying to understand what, in this case, Matthew is going for, and trying to connect the dots all over the Bible. And it's like 10 minutes. We just try to make it fun. And it's available every weekday morning, wherever you can get a podcast, the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. I think you might have fun with it. And if that's not for you, that's awesome. Either way, just glad we get to hang out and do this. All right. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Thanks for hanging out with me.